Hello and welcome to this week's episode of For the Love of Chiropractic. I'm your host, Dr. Robert Freeman. If you're new to the show, I want to say welcome. Thanks for taking time to check us out. Listen into today's episode as well as the other episodes that are in the library. There is a ton of information to help you grow your practice, to make chiropractic bigger and even better than it already is. If you're one of our long-term listeners from the 15 countries and 360 cities from around the world, welcome back. It's great to have you here. And again, I want to encourage everybody, make sure you hit subscribe so you never miss a single episode. And on that note, let's get started with today's show. On today's show, we're going to be talking about the three parts of practice: your head, your heart, and your hands. And while I may have mentioned that on a previous episode, we're going to be looking at it very differently today because those three parts, your head, your heart, and your hands, actually end up impacting the entire practice, create the entire practice, and in those three subsets are the keys for you to create the practice of your dreams. So here we go. Welcome to another episode of For the Love of Chiropractic. I'm your host, Dr. Robert Freeman. I've been in practice for over 30 years, and I continue to work in a $1 million practice that I built, ran, and sold. I've taught, lectured, and coached our profession, and helped so many chiropractors build the practice and the life of their dreams. And now, I want to help you do the same. So here's today's show. As I said in the introduction, on today's show, we're going to be visiting the three key ingredients, the three big parts: your head, your heart, and your hands. Each one of those categories has two subsections. And within each of those, the three categories, there are secrets in all the previous episodes they're going to tie back in. And while there's 40 episodes out already, I'm going to do my absolute best to reference back to which episodes so that way you can go back and pick up some of the other keys and pieces to really put it all together. So here we go, and let's get started. Let's start with your head. When I'm talking about your head, what's going on in your head when it comes to your practice? What I'm really talking about, number one, is your philosophy. What is your chiropractic philosophy? What is your vision of what chiropractic is? Who are the people that you're serving? I'm going to encourage you, if you're questioning that at all for any reason, go back and listen to episode number 4. It was called The Lost DC. And I'll also encourage you to go back to episode number 10, which was called Challenging the Chiropractor. In both of these episodes, from very different viewpoints, what we were talking about was your chiropractic philosophy. What is it that a chiropractor does? What is it that the chiropractic adjustment does? What are the impacts that adjustment can have on somebody's entire life? Certainly on their symptoms, but what about all the other aspects of their life as well? And your role when you remove the vertebral subluxation, how does that impact them? And do you really think about that at the deepest level every time you're doing an adjustment? And if not, I think that's something you really should be looking at. Because when you're in your practice and you're utilizing the philosophy that you carry around, it impacts the service that you're providing. When we talk about the service that you're providing, what is it that you're helping people with? Is it just the neck pain, the back pain, the headaches, the 8 symptoms that people often go to a chiropractor for? Or is there a lot more that's going on? And do you understand that? Because what I can tell you from all of the neurology studies, there is a lot more going on. It affects both the afferent and efferent sides of those nerves. When you do that adjustment, when you activate the mechanoreceptors, not only are you decreasing the pain, not only are you improving the range of motion, not only are you helping them function better, you're improving them neurologically from the basic level all the way up in the brain. And when you hear other chiropractors talking about these things, whether they have a larger understanding or a more minimal understanding than you do, what are your thoughts and what do you say to them? Do you just accept them where they are, which is just fine? Do you help them open their minds to understand the larger view of chiropractic and what's really possible? Because there are some of our colleagues who are simply moving a bone to increase range of motion, and they think that's the end of the day and the end of the story. And while it may be for them, it's really not the end of the story at all. Because what we're talking about now is the chiropractic that you're supplying. What is the chiropractic care that you are supplying? What is your scope of chiropractic practice? And I'm not talking about the legal aspect in your state or your territory or your district. Because while that is certainly very important, and you want to make sure that you're practicing within the confines of the law, do you really understand the impact that you can have on people regarding their health, as opposed to just, gee, I can't turn my neck quite as far as I should be able to, or my wrist feels stuck or has a funny click to it? And as we're talking about what's in your head, the other half of that is what's your vision? What's the vision for your practice? You know, we mentioned that scope has an issue. What's the scope? Who are you talking to? Who are you helping? To whom are you providing this care? That gets into your vision. How many people are you providing the care to? You may want to go back and reference episodes 16 or 17, because on both of those episodes, I went into detail about the optimized regular patient visit. On one of those episodes, we talked about all the good things and phenomenal things that the greatest chiropractors that I've ever known have done in practice on a daily basis as they're seeing their patients. And on the other episode, we talked about a bunch of the things that the chiropractors who aren't seeing as many people, aren't having as great an impact, the things that they say and do. To listen to both of those gives you a phenomenal view of where are you in this process, and all of us can improve and get better. So let's all learn new things. And as we're examining our vision for the practice, very often I hear from doctors that I talk to, oh, I'm doing the best I can. I'm just seeing the most people I can. We can't handle any more. And I've never been to, visited, or spoken with, or about a practice that doesn't have room to grow. The doctor has to be willing to examine the capacity blocks. Episode number 6 was all about capacity blocks. What's holding you back? Are you so convinced that your way, the way you're doing things right now, is the only way? It's the best way. There is no better option. Therefore, that's why I'm doing the best that I can with what's going on right now. I'm willing to bet that every single chiropractor out there could learn something from some other doctor or from some other business about how to provide even better care more efficiently at a higher level. If you're willing to examine your capacity blocks, what is it that slows you down? So the first thing that has to be done in any business is you've got to get your head right? You have to make sure your philosophy is sound. You own it. Maybe grow it. Okay. And then the second piece is your vision. What is it I'm building? Every business that ever gets built in the creator's mind first, and then takes root in the real world. So now the second piece of practice that we're going to look at is the heart of the practice. Because remember I said it's your head, your heart, and your hands. So the heart of the practice in the office, what's going on from the time you turn those lights on in the morning to the time you turn them off at the end of the evening, and everything that goes on in between. I'm talking about the systems and procedures that you use to run your office. It's everything that happens on the day one that a new patient comes in the office. So their scheduling, their paperwork, how that's done, the consultation, what do you say, what do you not say, the examination, how to go through the examination in a fast and efficient way. How do you release the patient at the end of the day one experience from the examination? Do you adjust on that first day or not? And I'm sure you've heard me say the most successful doctors do not adjust on the first day. If you frame it properly, you can do some physical therapy or some other adjunctive therapies to help reduce pain if it's an acute situation. But I don't ever believe it's a good idea to make it a routine habit to do the first adjustment on the first day before you've had time to really go over x-rays or imaging or collect other reports from other providers or other imaging centers, before you've had time to really sit down and go over the examination results, and before you've had the time to really sit and explain that to the person where they're in a place to really hear it. And that, of course, brings us to day 2. How is the person welcome back to the office? Well, what were your home instructions for the person after day 1? And then did they do them? And did you ask them about them in day 2? Your report of findings. How do you go through and explain to the person what they're doing? And what is your care acceptance rate? The person's now come to your office for a second time. And I believe if your care acceptance rate is not 99.9%, you're doing something wrong in your report of findings. And if your care acceptance rate is not that close to 100, then go back and listen to the report of findings with clear communication and help get yourself there. These people have come to your office not once but twice because they believe you can help them. And if they don't start care, it means you did something to dissuade them and prove to them they're not in the right place. Now, of course, that's assuming you do believe that theirs is something that can be helped with chiropractic care. What are some of the other things that happen on that second day? Well, the finances get gone over in detail. How efficiently are you doing that? Have you handled the money issue? Because then you've freed up the person's mind and yours or your office teams to really take care of this person's health. You've taken care of the money side. Let's take care of the health thing because that's what's really important. And does your patient, this newer patient who's been to your office twice, do they really know you care? I think one of the best ways you can show you care is after that first adjustment, which takes place after the report of findings. You do what is sometimes called the I care call. When you're on your way home from work that night, you simply pick up your cell phone, you're driving anyway, or you're walking home, depending on how far you live from your office, and you just give the person a call and say, hey, I always like to check in after the first adjustment to see how you're doing and see if you have any questions that you might like me to answer. That absolutely cements that you are a caring doctor and you're in this person's corner to help them get better. It doesn't take a lot of your time, but it means the world to the patients. And often in today's world, people are not picking up their cell phone, so you leave a voicemail. Well, that's perfect too. You leave the voicemail, hi, I'm calling you, this is my personal cell phone, or I'm calling you and it's routed from the office phone. If you have any problems or questions, feel free to call me and my phone will ring directly. I'm always available for my patients, assuming you are, and I think you should be. You're a doctor. And at that point, we're into all of the regular systems and procedures regarding the regular patient visit. What does that look like? And there's a way to optimize that. And I think it's a great idea to do that. Talk about payments, scheduling. When we're talking about scheduling, I still know offices that schedule patients to an exact time. We'll see you at 10 o'clock. We'll see you at 10:05. We'll see you at 10:10. And the challenge with that is if one person is 5 minutes late, what do you do? Do you turn them away? Do you make them reschedule? Or have you already seen your 10:10 patient hoping that they come in on time? If you do what's called cluster booking, and we discussed that on an earlier episode also, it makes it so much easier for the patient, so much easier for the practice, and so much easier to stay in the flow of helping people get better and get to optimum health and stay there. Your office becomes incredibly user-friendly, and people love to stay, pay, and refer because you're easy to work with. Some other parts of your systems and procedures are your billing. How often does billing go out? Do you even do billing in your office? Or is time simply expected at the time of service and there is no billing? I don't care. It just needs to be efficient so that people understand the game that they're playing. They know what's expected of them, and things get paid when they should, because we all have bills to pay. And possibly one of the most difficult or perceived difficult systems and procedures that go on in the chiropractic office are recalls. When patients have dropped out of care or disappeared, do you call them to see where they are? And the other half is handling objections. Let's talk about both of those for a couple minutes. Regarding patient recalls, there's a very simple procedure that almost everybody in the chiropractic profession uses, and I think you absolutely should be using that. And the procedure goes like this. Person has a 10 o'clock appointment in your office. It gets to be about 10:15 if they have not shown up. You should either call them or text them, depending on which one they prefer to be communicated with, because you've asked them ahead of time, if we ever had to communicate with you, reach out to you, how do you prefer us to call you? In today's world, most people either say a call or a text. A few say email, but that's not the most common. But talk to your people, reach out to them the way that they've said they want to be communicated with. So fine, you've done that. If you get them on the phone, that's terrific. You can offer them to come in later that same day. Once you have figured out what the problem is. Oh, I totally forgot, and now I'm running errands. Not a problem. We can see you later today. Or, oh my God, I totally forgot, and I got called out of town. I had to go visit my mother's brother. That no problem, and reschedule that appointment. Because their treatment schedule, you created their schedule a certain way because you felt it was important for them to be adjusted a certain number of times per week on a certain frequency. So you want to make sure they stay on that frequency and do your best to help them with that. If you don't get in touch with them, the recall system that I think works the best is the CAs, your front desk person or someone in the business office, will then call the person 2 additional times, not that same day. Perhaps it's the next day, perhaps it's the day after that. And once the CA has called the person 3 times with no response, they then let you know, and it goes on to what's called the doctor's call list. And you get to make the executive decision, what are we doing with this person? As the doctor, I believe you should reach out to the person 1 time. Do your best to actually get them on the phone. If they're a school teacher, don't call them during the school day. You know they're not going to answer the phone. Call them after the school hours. Call them just before school hours. But you want to have a conversation. Hey, are you okay? What's going on with your health? And where are you with the issues that we're trying to help you with? That way you know what's going on. If for some reason you can't get them on the phone, fine, leave a text message or a voicemail asking them to call you. And if push comes to shove, you can send an old school snail mail letter saying, I was unable to reach you. I'm concerned about your health. I'm here to help you. Please reach out to me so that we can help you get better. If you need a referral to another office that's more convenient, we're happy to provide that to you also, but please be in touch so we can help you in a way we possibly can. And you'd be amazed when you get to that point how often the phone rings or the person walks back in and says, oh my God, I was so glad to hear from you, because they want your help. They need your help. And the third and final part of these practice procedures are your hands. Now, I don't literally mean your hands, but what I mean is everything that you touch outside the office. I'm talking about from a marketing standpoint. When you're outside the office, how are you perceived? What does your touch look like in the community that you're serving? And I've previously talked about 2 different parts of marketing. There's one episode that was all about doing a patient appreciation day. Actually, it's called a patient appreciation party, and how to make it work, because so often we do patient appreciation days and they don't have the impact on the community that we're hoping that they do. But if you do it exactly the way that we talked about it on that episode, the patient appreciation day, oh my God, much better outcome. You'll be surprised. And then there was also the episode called 3 Ways to Double Your Practice. I won't go back and revisit that, but I'll invite you to go back and revisit it. But what we're talking about here is when, again, you're out in your community, every time you step outside the office, do people know you're the doc? Do they know you're the chiropractor? And I'm not talking about going around screaming, I'm a chiropractor, I'm a chiropractor. It's a casual conversation thing with the barista when you get your cup of coffee, with the waitress when you're ordering lunch, when you're checking out at the grocery store. Do they know you're the doctor, the chiropractor from across the street? And do you leave them with a warm, wonderful impression of who you are and who your office is and what chiropractic is? Are you kind, warm, and gentle? Are you sarcastic? Do you ignore them because they're just checking your groceries out? When the waitress brings you the bill, do you thank her for providing phenomenal service? Leave a nice tip? Maybe leave your business card? That's old school stuff, but it really does work. Every time you're out in the community, are you leaving a positive impression, leaving footsteps that show who you are, showing how you walk, and do you walk the talk and follow your own advice? And as we finish out today's episode, again, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen, being part of the community that has made this podcast the success that it is, and for the thank yous that I get all the time via phone, text, and email, and the website for theloveofchiropractic.com. And remember, when we're serving our patients, it's all about our head, our heart, and our hands anatomically, and the procedures in the office, the vision, the philosophy, systems and procedures, and the marketing and the impact that you leave on your community. All right, and that's our show for today. If you have a question about today's show or your own practice, feel free to reach out at fortheloveofchiropractic.com. Before making changes to your practice, be sure to seek legal advice regarding those changes and regulations in your state. For the Love of Chiropractic is an RGF production, all rights reserved. And thanks for listening. Original music provided by Hunter Rich Music.